I'm Chaim Topol. Usually I'm involved in the cinema and the theater. But like every other Israeli, I'm called as a reservist for several weeks every year to serve with the defense forces. My job is to meet guests from abroad, to take them around the country, and try and help them understand Israel's security problems. Here is a good place to start. It's called Amirim. It's in the Galilee, in the northern part of Israel. And from here, if you look down there, you can see the Lake of Galilee, above it the Golan Heights and the Syrian border. Now, if you turn and look over there, you can see the Mediterranean. It means that this is the entire width of our country. It's only about 40 miles from the Syrian border in the east to the Mediterranean in the west. In military terms, it means having no strategic depth, nowhere to fall back to in case of a surprise attack against us. An invading force could cut the country in two in a matter of hours. Along the Mediterranean coast, in a very narrow strip, 65% of Israel's entire population is concentrated, as well as 80% of our industry. As you can see, we are so small and our resources are so concentrated that we are extremely vulnerable to any attack. We are a country under constant threat. Our right to exist is still challenged by all but one of our Arab neighbors. Our survival from day to day depends upon constant alertness, efficient early warning, and a realistic assessment of the threat around us. We have to move and counter-move, adjust, check and maneuver, as daily we watch the factors of a delicate equation slipping further and further out of balance. We are in one of the nerve centers of the Israeli Defense Forces. Here, intelligence information is collected from all over the Middle East. It is carefully assessed. Even the smallest details are analyzed by experts. Major General Ehud Barak is the Deputy Chief of Staff.
We suffered a major failure of the early warning system in the 73 war. We do not believe that the surprise will come the same way. We clearly know that the Arabs, especially the Syrians, might try to find a way to repeat this type of surprise, even with better accomplishments. And we are fully aware and carefully scrutinize the horizon day by day and hour by hour to avoid this from happening.
The Middle East, Israel on the eastern shore of the Mediterranean, a country of only 4 million people surrounded by 22 Arab countries and Islamic fundamentalist Iran. It is a region of confusion, of conflict, and of shifting alliances between Arab countries. Oil has brought great wealth to many of them. Lack of oil means poverty and discontent to others. Many countries are tied to the past, and religious extremism is a potent force at work. The Middle East is a competitive arena for the superpowers who play for vast stakes in this crucial area. So these are the shifting sands upon which the strategic equation is written. But there was a moment when the whole world hoped for peace in the Middle East. In November 1977, an event occurred at Israel's Ben Gurion airport, which offered an escape from this cycle of violence. President Anwar Sadat, who had led his Egyptian armies against Israel only 4 years earlier, arrived here, this time as peacemaker.
ولقد جئت إليكم اليوم على قدمين ثابتتين.
I come to you today on solid ground to shape a new life, to establish peace. What is peace for Israel? It means that Israel lives in the region with her Arab neighbors in security and safety. To such logic, I say yes.
There was Camp David, a peace treaty, and then in Washington a famous three-way handshake, which became a symbol of hope for a comprehensive peace.
Let us have three of us together.
The Israeli-Egyptian accord has held firm in the face of much hostility. Syria and Libya led the countries which rejected the peace process. And the wheel of Middle East violence continued to turn. Sadat was dead, and Hosni Mubarak carried on the peace with Israel. But still, ripples of terrorism spread through the Middle East and far beyond. We have witnessed an appalling toll over the past 10 years. State-sponsored terrorism, holy revolution, and all-out war. We are surrounded by violence. Some of it defies Western logic, and much of it has nothing directly to do with the Arab-Israeli conflict. But we must watch and assess all the activity in the region as it affects the strategic equation and therefore our security.
As we are in an information center, in order to try and understand what is really a complicated picture of the Middle East, let's have a look at some of the countries of the region individually so we can see what's been happening there in the last few years. Let's start, say, with Saudi Arabia. Can you bring it up, please?
The West continues to maintain the belief that Saudi Arabia is a moderate, stabilizing influence in the Middle East. In fact, the Saudi contribution to stability has been minimal. Internally, there are enormous tensions created by its super oil wealth and the over-rapid modernization of a traditional society. Unbelievably, the recent drop in oil prices has led to balance of payments problems in a country whose princes are used to limitless spending.
In the eyes of the world, Saudi Arabia has stayed out of the front line of confrontation with Israel. The reality is that Saudi oil wealth is used to buy vast armories for other Arab states and terrorist groups like the PLO. In spite of the drop in oil revenue, Saudi Arabia continues its own military buildup at massive levels. In the past 4 years alone, over $70 billion have been spent to acquire the most sophisticated weapons available today.
Under the Ayatollah Khomeini, Iran was whipped into a fervor of fundamentalism and became a center of religious revolution.